Resuming debate, the honourable member for Stormont, Dundas, South Glengarry.
I have to admit, Madam Speaker, I am a little tough on the NDP sometimes, not only here in the House, but in the travels and tour that I do across the country on behalf of our party, our leader and the official opposition. I consider myself a relatively nice guy, but I have to tell you, my patience is waning thin when it comes to the credibility of the NDP. You see, I've had the opportunity to visit Northern Ontario several times, making the drive between North Bay, Sudbury, Timmins, Sault Ste. Marie, Thunder Bay, and all points in between. The NDP's continued support of propping up this tired Liberal government is a frustrating point in itself. But just imagine how unpopular the ever-increasing carbon tax is in Northern Ontario. To have to go from Timmins down to Sudbury, about a 3.5 hour drive, it is driving up the cost of gas to go to medical appointments. It's costing groceries more when reefer trucks are going up to Northern Ontario just to deliver food. The NDP are completely out of touch with the very communities in Northern Ontario they've claimed to represent well. Vancouver Island. When you go out there, over the course of the last couple of years, so many people that cast a ballot for the NDP in the last election have buyer's remorse. They didn't vote for the NDP to prop up the Liberals in a 4-year coalition deal, to cover up their scandals, and to go along with this Prime Minister and his out-of-touch agenda that's driving up inflation, has doubled housing prices, has doubled our national debt. And what the increasing frustrating point was, if they wanted to vote for this Prime Minister to remain in power, they would have voted Liberal. They voted NDP for something different, but instead they've got nothing but the same. So there is a hypocrisy here, a double standard that the NDP need to be called out on, and I'm happy to do so time and time and time again of reminding Canadians, whether it be in Vancouver Island, whether it be in Northern Ontario, or any other place where they currently hold seats. They prop up the Liberals on every budget. And there's a hypocrisy there because then in the budget speeches that they vote for, they complain that things are put in the budget but never followed through on. And the one thing that they do as well, Madam Speaker, is they cover up the constant scandals that we try to get answers for at committee. The cover-up coalition is something we used several times over the course of the last couple of years. Think of the Winnipeg lab documents. Think of foreign interference. Think of ArriveCan. The lists and examples of the number of times the NDP have voted to shut down meetings, to shut down committee studies and investigations, into the numerous examples of waste is endless and frustrating those that have perhaps traditionally in the past supported the NDP. Many traditional NDP supporters say they don't recognize this party anymore, and rightfully so. That's why I believe common sense Conservatives are really getting some good momentum across the country. We are the contrast that after 9 years, they want to quadruple the carbon tax from its current levels. We want to axe the carbon tax. And we are the ones, when we say something to Canadians, we will follow through and do that. Unlike the NDP, where we are today on their opposition day motion here in the House, claiming that they stand up against corporate greed and against corporate welfare handouts. This is a non-binding motion, to clarify, the NDP are putting on here, and this is the shell game and the charade that they play and that Canadians are calling out, and rightfully so. This motion, if it passes or it doesn't, will not force the Liberal government to make any change that they claim they want to have. So if there was only something the NDP could actually do to get their way and maybe get some change in this country, they could stop propping up this tired, out-of-touch, and corrupt Prime Minister and Liberal NDP government. Let Canadians decide. If they're so confident on their ideas, if they are so confident that they're on the right track, they should have no problem now. 3 years since the last election, call the question. Let's have an election and let Canadians decide. And there's a reason, Madam Speaker, that we're dealing with a non-binding motion here today. So as I split my time today, Madam Speaker, with the member behind me from Bay of Quinte, a great member from Eastern Ontario, I just want to say I feel bad for the NDP because they are on full display today just how hypocritical they are with their messaging and their attempts to make Canadians believe that they are different from this current Liberal government. You see, we're debating today their NDP opposition day motion. But just moments ago, during routine proceedings, the Auditor General just tabled her latest set of reports on spending by this Liberal NDP government. Spending that was not only approved by the Liberals, but propped up fully every single time by the NDP. A report came out regarding Sustainable Development Technology Canada. That is the Liberal NDP Green Slush Fund that's been under scandal and under review for months. The report just tabled ago. If the NDP want to tackle corporate greed, corporate welfare, and corporate handouts, and Liberal insiders getting special privilege in contracts to taxpayer money, this is the real deal of what we're talking about. The Auditor General's words, hot off the press, just tabled here this morning, on this Green Slush Fund scandal. Quote, "We found that money was awarded to funding to projects that were ineligible, that conflicts of interest existed in some instances, and that certain requirements were not met. We found that the group appointed by the Liberals awarded funding to 10 ineligible projects, awarded $59 million, even though they did not meet key requirements set out in the contribution agreements." And it goes on. Here's how bad the corruption is. And this is supported and voted for by the NDP, and trust me, they're going to continue to prop them up. Quote, "Also, we found 90 cases that were connected to approval decisions representing nearly $76 million in funding awarded to projects where the Foundation's conflict of interest policies were not followed." What's that mean? Let me simplify it. That means Liberal appointees gave money in conflict of interest to their Liberal friends and corporate insiders. Approved by the NDP, propped up by the NDP. When we talk about corporate greed, we talk about corporate welfare, we talk about a waste of taxpayers' money in corruption, right there from the Auditor General, the NDP are going to have a lot to answer for if they want to keep propping up, not through a binding, non-binding opposition day motion, but again, continued confidence in this government. The NDP have zero credibility. If that wasn't enough, the Auditor General's been busy because there was a second report today, Madam Speaker, coming back about the amount of money spent on outside contractors and consultants under this Liberal government. Professional services contract was the title of the report. And let me just say this. McKinsey, a Liberal insider firm, has received over $200 million, $209 million over the course of the last several years. And they found many examples where departments and agencies and 8 out of 10 Crown corporations failed to properly follow all aspects of their procurement policies and guidance on at least a contract they had with McKinsey. The investigation need to continue. We need to get to the bottom of this and stop these corporate handouts that are coming from this NDP Liberal government. Remember, Madam Speaker, it is not just the Liberals tabling a budget. It is the NDP going along carte blanche and approving all of these, whether it be the budget, whether it be the estimates, whether it be the cover-ups at committee, as Conservatives try to get to the bottom, to root this out, to stop this corporate welfare handout to Liberal inside friends. It's the NDP that need to answer for it. At the end of the day, Madam Speaker, there are things we can do in this country that are not being done after 9 years of the NDP Liberal government. We have a competition problem in this country. And the NDP, despite all their complaints and their tough questions in question period, prop the status quo up of these Liberals each and every time. And a key item that can provide immediate relief, controlled by the federal government, is to axe the carbon tax. It is now just clear. It is driving up grocery prices, and they're just getting started. They want to quadruple the carbon tax to 61 cents a litre. It is out of touch. Canadians are out of money, And frankly, at the end of the day, Madam Speaker, with this motion, they are tired of the NDP hypocrisy of always talking a tough game and then propping up the Liberals until at least next fall. I can't wait for Canadians to have their say at the next election.
Thank you.